I'm Neil Roberts, and this is Dragonheart.
Hello, welcome to Dragonheart. Just the two of us here, but be honest, we are your two favourites, aren't we? I'm Mark Griffiths. Come on, Neil. Come on, Neil. You know what the people want. And Neil Williams, of course, is with me. For those of you who are not watching, I'm wearing Sherry Motel on Mars's beautiful Wrexham US flag, which we flew in front of the press box on Saturday, and we'll try and keep doing that as much as we possibly can. But firstly, Neil, I'm going to pretend I didn't see you less than 24 hours ago and say, how are you doing?
I'm absolutely fine, Mark. Unlike yourself, we've got 6 weeks, I should say, free time. I'm still working, and it's been a busy day.
You poor thing. Well, you know.
I know.
And now you're stress-free, whereas I'm keeping one eye on Laszlo, the podcasting cat, because he's wandering around here trying to find things that aren't food for him to eat. Anything plastic or paper is on his menu.
Definitely stress-free. My dog's fast asleep in the kitchen, so he's all right at the moment. So
fair play. I'm going to take this flag off now because the problem with using it as a cape is it's beautifully made. It's really thick with layers, and I'm sweltering after having it on for about 2 minutes. So, well, let's just introduce the show because we'll be looking back on the first two games of the season. There's a contrast for you. And we'll also be looking forward to Wimbledon. Mike, the ref, will make his customary intervention as well. And we'll be talking to Barry Worthington from the Wigan podcast, Progress Through with Unity, about James McClean. So, as those long blokes say, this is Dragonheart.
I'm Mia Roberts, and this is Dragonheart.
Well, we had a dramatic start of the season, losing 5-3 at home to Milton Keynes Dons. I mean, to be honest, Neil, if it wasn't startling, it wouldn't be Wrexham, because at the moment, everything off and on the pitch it just feels like hyper real in really bright colours. Everything's crazy.
Yeah, firstly, I want to say, it's good to be back. Good to be back at the racecourse, watching some football and doing Dragonheart again. And yeah, I think Saturday's game was a big eye opener and a big bump down to earth. After the epic season we had last season with so many exciting games to watch. I mean, don't get me wrong, Saturday was an exciting game to watch, but in many ways not for Wrexham fans. But there was 8 goals in the game. Players looked a bit tired and lethargic, I think. And I think it was a big learning curve for them to see what the opposition is going to be like this season as well.
I can't stop thinking in a way. I don't know. I feel like he said that sort of rustiness at the start of the match. I feel like that sort of conditioned how we saw the rest of it, because after about half an hour, we started getting on top, and the second half was all us, wasn't it? I hate to say this because I think we've got the squad to deal with Mullin's absence, but it felt, especially the second half, like the sort of game where Mullin would have filled his boots and the number of balls were getting into the box, but we just didn't have somebody finishing her off.
Totally agree. I think the second half was far better when Parky decided to bring on the subs and make a lot of changes. When he took off Dalby and Waters and brought on Palmer. Made a huge difference. And we could have scored a lot more goals, But it was what it was. I mean, as you say, the first 5-10 minutes we were very shaky with all the 6s and 7s in defence. Nobody wanted to tackle anybody. And it was a freak on goal. It was a superb on goal by O'Connell. But that's football. I mean, fans are up in arms already about us losing, but that is football. You can win and lose games, and better to lose now than later on in the season. And I think it was a big learning curve for a lot of the players out there as well. And I think, the US tour was great for the American fans, but I do think, they came home from America a week too late and should have been back a lot earlier for recovery time and everything, and get back to normal training. The conditions in the States were everywhere was very hot. So I should imagine their training was quite limited out there because of the heat out there. But it is what it is. We lost 5-3 to MK Dons, who only came down from the Championship last season. We scored some great goals. The 3 goals we scored were superb. It's just a shame we couldn't have kept them out. It would have been a good game.
Well, going back to the US tour, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think everything about the US tour is brilliant, and I hope we keep doing things like that. But it's got to be shifted forward a week, I think. I mean, I was reading there's a brilliant article by Richard Sutcliffe in The Athletic about Kevin Mulholland's amazingly detailed program for the players during and after the tour to make sure that physically they were okay for Saturday. And I personally felt that I had faith that that's something which was done really well. But the problem is with the timing of it, we've only had 4 pre-season matches. Phil Parkinson mentioned lack of minutes in players' legs from pre-season. And it felt a little bit like that, a little bit undercooked, So I think if they'd had a week earlier, they could have fitted in like last season. We remember we played Macclesfield at the racecourse the Saturday before. I think that was it, or was that the season before that? But that sort of game just to set us up, I think that's ideal. And actually, as Parkinson did in that Macclesfield game, take it seriously. Keep the same players on. Just made 3 late subs. That sort of thing, I think, would have really set us up nicely. And I don't know, I think a combination of factors, that being one of them, led to the opening 20 minutes when we essentially handed them the game, didn't we? And then had to play, come fight back.
Totally. I mean, it was quite a surprise to see, our defence as well, with O'Connor, in the centre defence rather than being a midfielder, or when we've got a number of defenders capable. I mean, Clwyth, could have fitted in, and then we'll go to last night's game, but he had a cracking game last night. But it's not as if we're short of defenders, and it was quite a strange lineup for me when we saw the team sheets when they came out for the game against MK Dons. The fair play to MK Dons, they played a good game. I think you were saying that that they have one. I think you spoke to one of their reporters, and they said they only have one good game every now and again, but they played some great football. Their number 2 on the wing was superb, tall guy on the wing, and we got very little change from him. Was Mendy up against him, and he really struggled against him. But it was a good game to watch. I didn't come away thinking, that was awful. It was a real entertaining game to watch. Just the scoreline, which was disappointing. I felt, the more the match went on, Wrexham got more and more into the game and actually took control of the game. And then they scored that 5th goal. If we'd have scored, brought it back to 4-4, it would have been a totally different game. But we let them catch us on the break again, and they scored the 5th to make it 5-3, and it was game over.
Looking back through my notes, I sort of started thinking, gosh, we really could have got something at that, even though we let in 5 goals. And looking at, one of the joys for me of being back in the Football League is we're actually getting more detailed stats out in the public domain. And we had more shots than anybody else in the whole of League 2 on Saturday. But the problem is we only about 20% of them were on target, whereas Milton Keynes Dons had 6 shots on target, scored 5 goals.
I think we had 60% or 62% possession.
Yeah.
Which says a lot for the team.
Yeah. I think that it was. I'm going to sound. I don't want to sound stupid and say strip out the first 20 minutes and it was good, because you can't strip out the first 20, and that conditioned what was to come. But I think I'm not so keen to use the phrase learning curve. A lot of these players have been here and higher. I think more a combination of factors just caught them out at the start, and we then went away from our principles. And as Phil Parkinson was saying to us, wasn't he, after the game yesterday, that he felt we'd got away from the basics that make us good. I think the phrase he used was "make us Wrexham," and then they were able to recover on the Tuesday. But yeah, there was still positives from Saturday, but like as you said, a lot of them were the performances of the substitutes, weren't they? Palmer and Bickerstaff up front, Ford coming on the right hand side, Jordan Davis coming on in midfield, and Bryce Hosanna was lively on the left, wasn't he? They all really rejuvenated the team in the second half, didn't they?
Made a huge difference being on those subs, and I say we could have ended up with a draw apart. If we'd have. We had so many chances, we just didn't put them away. But yeah, that's football. We see it week in, week out. I was hoping it was going to be another Dover game, but it wasn't. But first game of the season, so what? It's out of the way. It's done. our home record, which has been so great for the last season and a half, is gone now. The unbeaten record at home. So that was a little bit of a disappointment, but we moved on then to the Tuesday night to the cup game.
What a smooth link that was, Neil. So after this, let's talk about yet another Wrexham giant killing feat.
I'm Steve Dale, and this is Dragonheart.
Yes, Wigan. Once more, Wrexham doing what's natural to us, beating a team from a higher division. That was a hell of a game and a hell of a performance, wasn't it, Neil?
Oh, it was between Saturday's game and last night's game was chalk and cheese. I mean, the players it was a totally different starting lineup virtually, apart from
8 changes.
4 players.
Yeah.
But the difference in their play, and when you could see them defending, you could see them drifting across the pitch as one. You could see them moving forward as one. It was just a totally different game, a thoroughly entertaining game to watch, even though it was only a 0-0 draw. But I think the stats were reversed. I mean, I think Wigan had far more possession than we did last night, but they were unable to do. They couldn't break us down. We defended so well. We worked as a unit so well. Cleworth, as mentioned, came on really well and did a great job. Then we had Luke Young in midfield, who did a superb job, which he always does. And I'm so impressed with his his dead ball situation, his corners and whatever. How we didn't score off a couple of his corners, I'll never know. But I said to a friend today, he's worth just being on the pitch just for his his dead ball. The balls he swings into that box are superb, and just his work rate. But there was nobody we struggled to pick a man of the match last night because every player on that pitch did a sterling job last night. They were all very, very good. Compared to Saturday's game, they were far more compact. As I said, they worked well together. The team, they defended, they covered for each other. If the wing backs went forward, then the defence would drift over to one side wherever need would be. And it was fantastic and lovely to watch. And as you said, we met Parky after on our way out, and he was beaming. He was pleased with the performance, and he's got such a headache this coming Saturday away at Wimbledon on team choice. I think maybe even a couple of the subs that came on last night still looked a bit leggy and a bit lethargic, and maybe they need another game is coming on as subs.
Yeah, maybe so. And also maybe some of those players might see what's happened on Tuesday and realise that their places are in jeopardy. And maybe that'll help them perhaps to just get themselves wound up and motivated, because it was a tremendous performance. I mean, that team's not really, apart from the intervening days and Saturday, had any extra time to put time into their legs. But they performed beautifully. And for a side that doesn't usually play together, like you say, off the ball, our coordination was really good. We were making really good decisions when Wigan had the ball, and we really limited their opportunity to create things. But at the other end, I mean, Bickerstaff, both games, hasn't he been terrific?
He's been a breath of fresh air, hasn't he? Him on there with Palmer last night, they worked really well together, because Palmer looks like a new player come on as well. He looks a lot leaner, a lot fitter. And he played ever so well last night as well. And the two of them, Bickerstaff with his pace and his skills, and Palmer with his bulk, and he was getting winning a lot of the balls coming to him and holding the ball up. Great combination. And for me, that would be my starting two on Saturday.
Yeah,
with maybe the same midfield that we started with last night as well, of Jones, Davis, and Young.
Well, Palmer, definitely, he's desperate to play against Wimbledon, his old team, on Saturday. And the way he's thrown himself about, he started the season so well. He's but you could see it in the MK Dons game. It was really striking, wasn't it? Because Sam Dolby and Billy Waters, I mean, they worked really hard, but they just couldn't get into the game. And then the moments those two came on, Palmer suddenly was bullying these centre-backs who'd been winning everything when it was a physical challenge. And Bickerstaff just buzzing around, finding space. They didn't know whether to follow him or not. They weren't quite certain. He was tremendous. And there was early on, and after Bickerstaff came on, that centre-back, Conor O'Hara, the Irish lad, who's really highly rated for MK Dons, and he had the most serene first 60 minutes you could imagine. He looked really classy. And then Bickerstaff came on and almost immediately turned him and put a good ball into the box. You think, aye, you're in a different game now, centre-back. You're getting engaged now. And yeah, those two, the way they combined, well, yeah, I agree. I would start them on Saturday, to be honest.
Yeah, the only tweaks I'd make would maybe have Mendy start instead of McFadden, and keep the defence exactly the same, because I thought they played really well last night, even down to the goalie. Howard had a great game. He didn't put a foot wrong. Did he have one save to make, which he tipped it?
He made that good save, didn't he, when the ball was driven across him and he got his right hand to it in the first half. I feel like he had something else. He made a save in the second half, didn't he? There was a powerful low shot, and he got down. He made it look quite straightforwards, but it was really well hit. But he was commanding his box well, wasn't he?
Very much so.
Was that?
Very much so. And 0-0 draw. It's I would say it must be one of the most entertaining 0-0 draws I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was very exciting, wasn't it? The Wigan press were not so impressed. Now, I can understand that. As you pointed out yesterday, they were 3 divisions above us last season, but they were like, oh, it wasn't a very good quality game. And I was thinking, well, I mean, maybe I come from humbler beginnings in the National League, but I thought there was a lot of good quality football on the show there. It was entertaining. The passing and movement was good. I thought Wigan technically looked very good. It's just they were outmaneuvered by us, weren't they? Really?
Yeah. I think, as you said last night, I'm trying to think what I was going to say. Sorry, Mark. Just the quality of play. Our defending was very well. There was a couple of misplaced passes, but that happens all the time. But our defence looked solid last night. Absolutely solid compared to Saturday.
I go so far in disagreeing with what the Wigan lads said. They weren't being argumentative. I must point out. But disagreeing about the idea that there wasn't much quality in the game. To me, it felt like a League One game. I thought that all the players looked good quality. There was some really nice technical stuff going on, and for me, it felt like last season when we were playing the likes of Coventry and Sheffield United, and you could see that our players were comfortable in that company and able to compete. I mean, I was reading this morning again in the Athletic. There's an article where each of the correspondents for the Premier League team said which player is indispensable. If you lose that player, you're in trouble. You got Liverpool saying Salah, Spurs saying Kane, which of course could happen. But I was interested that the Sheffield United correspondent said Ahmed Hodzic, who I know is a very well thought of centre-back, and he looked very good at the racecourse. But goodness me, Mullin tore him to pieces at Bramall Lane. And that's the sort of thing you think, well, okay, he's your essential player in the Premier League. But we have players, I know Mullin's special, but we have a lot of players who really should be playing at a higher level, and they make that sort of game like the Wigan match where we can definitely live with players with a high quality.
Oh, yeah, we did. We weren't out of our league at all last night, were we? I mean, as I said earlier, Wigan had a lot of possession, but they had lack of ideas because we closed everything down. They passed it a lot along the back, and they had to revert to the long ball over the top, which initially worked in the first 10 minutes of the game. Looked a bit dangerous, but we worked all out. And obviously Parky had a word with the players, and we cut that supply off, and that was ineffective. So, yes, they had a lot of possession, but it was just passing across the back four.
Especially, like you said, the last half hour, where they seem to deliberately become more passive, almost. They were, like you said, that's a fair point. Yeah, they were moving it around a lot at the back in the first half, but then playing that long ball, fairly early. When they saw an opening, they were trying to hit it. In the second half, there was an awful lot of sideways passing, and just our shape was very good. And although, in attacking sense, Dolby and Lee weren't able to get much going, they worked very hard by dropping a bit deep and just making them pass around in front of them. So, even then, they've done a good job for the team. But, it was fantastic.
Wigan's diagonal ball that they played a couple of times in the first half was very effective, caught us out. But I'd say we closed that down, and they, as I said earlier, they ran out of ideas of what to do, and they just basically played keep ball in the back four.
And when they got into that phase of the game, because we've dropped off Okay, if you want to do that, fine. We'll just defend our half. That diagonal now goes out of the picture. They're their most promising pass because our wing backs have dropped off and with the centre back. So that diagonal's gone now. They can't play it, and so they really. I think you're absolutely right. You're schooling me through the game. I'm going to record the final whistle in a minute. I'm going to steal all your ideas. You're dead right. They threw away the ability to play that diagonal because they became so passive in midfield, and we just if you could just pass it square to each other, we'll just stand back here and watch you then. And they almost played like, you see like a World Cup game or something, and it's gone into extra time, and one of the sides settles for penalties. They just square it. It's like that, wasn't it? Which was peculiar because they were the high division team, but they just couldn't get through us, could they?
Yeah, the last 10 minutes felt very much like that, where they were just playing the game out, and I think they thought they could win it on penalties.
And then the penalties came along.
Penalties. I mean, it was punch per punch for the first 2 penalties.
Yeah,
big penalties. Howard got near one of theirs, I think.
Yeah,
that was the closest any keeper got to the ball, and then. To be fair, all our penalty takers superb. No keeper would have got anywhere near them.
No.
I mean, Luke Young stepped up to take the first one. Obviously, he put his hand up and said, "Yeah, I'll do the first one." But 4 great penalties for Wrexham. And then I can't remember who their player was, and how he skied it over the bar. And I think you said, I think quality player or something, and I said, "Oh, that's a banana skin."
That's right.
And he goes it over the bar as if he's playing for Wigan Rugby League.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. You have a talent for picking the right phrase at the right time, and that was perfect. That wasn't just last night. We had Young, Lee, O'Connor, Dalby all sent the keeper the wrong way with their penalties, and then, like you rightly say, Howard's the only keeper who got anywhere near one. Humphreys drilled it as a great penalty inside the post, but it had to be a great penalty because Howard nearly got to it. And to be fair to Howard, he didn't have a prayer of getting near 2 of the penalties because Ascard and Hughes, the player saying the talented player, they went for the roof of the net and they found the roof of the stand, didn't they? So happy days. We kept our cool against a higher division team in the shootout.
I mean, you and Che were you were saying how good a keeper they've got there at Wigan, and he was a great keeper. I mean, he made a fantastic double save to keep. I think it was firstly, was it
Bickerstaff?
George Davis out?
It was Bickerstaff and then Davis, wasn't it? Brilliant double save.
Yeah, double save. So Wrexham had the chances. Bickerstaff tried a great overhead kick as well, which if that had come off would have been a fantastic goal. But it went to penalties. Wrexham held out and they scored 4 great penalties, and Wigan blasted 2 over the bar, which was just like watching them in the rugby league. So a great win for Wrexham, and we'll find out in the week who our next opponents are going to be.
Well, don't say that because this is going to go out after we found out. So let's say we'll say something and then we'll edit it out, whichever one is true. So what a fantastic home draw against the Premier League team! I can't believe it. Oh, how disappointing to be going to Rotherham. We'll cut out whichever we don't need. Yeah. Ooh, Shrewsbury. So we keep going like this for every team? No, maybe not.
No, there's a lot of teams, Mark.
Yeah. Can I throw you 2 dull stats that I've uncovered? One of them, that now puts us ahead all time in penalties. Wrexham have been in 17 penalty shootouts. We've won 9 and lost 8. So that means nothing but nonetheless. There you go. And also, just over 1 in 5 of all the games that Jake Bickerstaff has played for Wrexham has ended in a penalty shootout.
Wow.
He's been involved in 14 games, and 3 of them have gone to penalties. The Altrincham game as well last year, and then also the game against his debut against Ayr United. He actually scored in the shootout in that game. So he seems to attract penalty shootouts, doesn't he?
Yeah, I was in the way that I was trying to think of the stat that you brought up last night, and I can't recall what you said. But but he didn't take a penalty though last night. He'd already gone off the pitch, so he couldn't have taken the penalty last night, could he?
No, true enough. But he played in the game. That's all that matters for my obscure stats. That's all I'm saying. Well, I tell you what, one person who we didn't pick, you were saying about rotating the side, was James McClean. I mean, what a signing he is. And so he may well be in contention on Saturday. I was fortunate enough to talk to Barry Worthington, who presents the Progress Through Unity podcast about Wigan Athletic, and he had some really interesting things to say about McClean. So have a listen to it after this.
I'm Luke Young, and this is Dragonheart.
The elephant in the room, let's address it. James McClean.
Yeah, he's not an elephant for us because we love him and we still love him. I spoke to a Wrexham fan 2 days ago, and I said, hopefully you'll get to know James McClean, the man, because they talked about the baggage, but there's no baggage with James McClean. It's the opposition fans' way of trying to get to him. And if they do, Mark, I'll tell you, all it does is motivate him to play even stronger. Last season, he came in for a lot of abuse, and finally the FA and the EFL stood up to it, and they charged clubs with racism, because basically that's what it is. And it was sickening to hear at times, but we don't like talking about this. Well, as Wigan Athletic fans, we like talking about him. He's a family man. He loves his family, and his family are always there at the game supporting him. He loves the clubs he plays for, gives you 110% on the pitch. He's an inspiration to the younger players, the way he trains, the way he conducts himself. He'll never shirk a tackle. He's an 100-cap international, so in itself, that tells you what he's like. His first game for us, Wigan Athletic, it was at Wembley. He played in the Charity Shield against Manchester United. Played in Europe with us. He's won Player of the Season twice. He's loved. And all it were with he's 34, and I think that might be a concern for yourselves, but he played every game with us last season in the Championship. One of the fittest players. So you're getting yourself a really good athlete. He can play in a number of positions, primarily down the left. He can play left back, left wing back, left wing, but he can play inside a little bit as well. So you get a player who can play in midfield, and he's tenacious, as you know, good on the ball. He can put a cross in, got a hell of a shot on him. He goes with our best wishes. I think the top and bottom of it were he was named club captain, and there were talk of him having another year extension after the one what we're in now. Due to our new owners coming in and being frugal with what they're spending, they don't want to employ older players over a certain age, and they said they didn't want to give him a contract beyond the end of this season. Wrexham came in and said they'd give him a 2-year deal, which suited him and his family. And I think you give him a little bit of a pay rise as well, so he's getting a bit more money. And at the end of the day, no matter how much he loves Wigan Athletic, it's a job, and he's got to think of his future. And maybe you've offered him some coaching responsibilities as well. I don't know about that, but I do know he wants to get into the coaching side of football. So he goes with our best wishes. He goes with everybody at the club's best wishes. Sean Maloney spoke highly of him on Radio Manchester on Saturday. They tried to push him in a corner, saying he left on the eve of the season and all this. And he said, I wouldn't have a bad word said against James McClean. He didn't get paid last season, and he played in, I think, 6 games without wages. He stepped forward on the last game of the season. We were relegated. He hadn't been paid. He didn't know if he was going to have a club. And he was the first person to step forward and say, I'm playing on Saturday, or when on Monday it was against Rotherham. And the club gave him the skipper's armband for that. And yeah, he's a legend. There's no two ways about it. And you'll love him. You'll love him for his passion. And I think I'd just say, forget all the abuse he gets from the opposition fans. Don't get embroiled in it. Just let him get on with it and get behind him as a player. And you'll soon discover James McClean, the man, as well.
Yeah, I see all the things about his charity work, which seems to be coming from a really genuine place. I mean, people can be cynical about that sort of thing, but what he's doing looks to be genuinely, big-hearted of him. Yes. And also the fact that it's Wrexham means that those off-pitch issues, certainly won't be an issue for our support base, because, we're Celts too. So yes, I think, there's going to be a lot of sympathy for that. I think a lot of Wrexham fans are sort of excited by the fact that he has that sort of identity because it's something that we can associate with. So I think there's a lot of positive to be had from it. Like you said, his age is perhaps the one thing you would wonder about. It doesn't fit Parkinson's approach in terms of how he brings players in normally. But having said that, he's clearly got a lot of quality, and you break those rules, don't you? When you get an opportunity to bring in a player who will raise the level of your team, then those rules don't matter, do they, really? So I think that's the thinking of it.
Yeah, I think Parky will know everything about him. He'll know all he needs to know, and he'll know how tenacious he is, and he'll be one of the outstanding players in League Two this season, without any doubt.
Excellent. Looking forward to seeing him play.
I'm Amy Davis, and this is Dragonheart.
So, really heartfelt tribute from Barry Worthington there for James McClean, the person as well as the player. And I mean, this is another one of those eye-opening signings that make people stop and pay attention. Current Irish international with 100 caps, versatile, attacking, strong, gritty, 34. But he appeared in every Football League game last season for Wigan and was their Player of the Year. It's an exciting, again, Neil, signing, and a proof that, Parkinson says, I'm not going to rush in and buy somebody. I'll wait till I can get the deal with the right person. A further vindication of how he goes about his business.
Oh, yeah, totally agree with you. And I think, Wrexham have got a lot to offer him, and Wigan have been unstable for a while within the club financially and whatever, haven't they? So he's seen Wrexham, that we've gone in for a Park, he's gone in and approached them and put an offer in for him, and he thought, well, this is an up-and-coming club. He sees where the club is going. Whether Rob and Ryan have had words with him, like they have with most of the players, I don't know. And say, we'll put you into Deadpool at some point. But a great signing, for a player of that calibre to come to Wrexham. But, he's got stability. He's going to have a career there, maybe see his career out at Wrexham. The great support we've got. Who wouldn't turn down a move to Wrexham, with what's going on at the club at this moment in time, and where, the owners want to take the club in the next few years. And that's what I like about the players that's come into the club, and hopefully he's going to be one exactly the same, They're not these prima donnas who want to take all the limelight themselves. They're there as part of the team. And that's what Parky's been very good at, is selecting the players who come in and just do the job. And not what, again, they're not standing there looking for the plaudits on the pitch. They're not singling themselves out. They play as a complete team is what's great. And I think there's a great community atmosphere within the dressing room, and every player gets on with every player. And that's what I really like about this, how Parky's brought new players into the club.
Yeah, you're right. It reminds me in a way of his predecessor, Dean Keats, as well. The idea of, the player's character is important as well as their quality. And there's no question that with McClean, you're going to get, as Barry said, somebody who's going to set high standards and work for the team. And that's fantastic. A real personality to bring in. And speaking of real personalities, I reckon it's time to get another bit of wisdom from our good pal, Mike the ref.
Coward!
Hello and welcome to Mike the Ref, part of the Dragonheart podcast, talking about all things refereeing. Today I'm on the Animal Sanctuary again with the donkeys behind me. The grey one's Dougal, the brown one is George. So this is where they live. So I think we'll call Dougal in the zebra coat is the concrete donkey. So let's talk about refereeing. Referees so far in the EFL, 2 games, been good. They've both of them have let the game flow, dealt with what they needed to do with, clamped down on time wasting, managed the game, didn't really need to know the referee was there, job done. So let's have a look at the latest instructions to referees. So, as Dougal here will tell you, referees have been told this season 3 things: clamp down on time wasting and added time, deal with the game and manage the game a bit better, but also deal with dissent challenge decisions, or what's known as mobbing the referee. So, time wasting. Studies were done by FIFA, the FA and other stakeholders showing that a game of football should last 90 minutes or so. We were only getting about 50 minutes of football a game. Goal celebrations were the main culprit of time wasting, where the average goal celebration was taking about 2.5 minutes. Referees were only adding about 45 seconds a minute a goal, or the old adage of 30 seconds to a minute per stoppage would give us the old injury time ratio. So what has changed? Essentially, in the EFL, the fourth official will now manage the time added on and communicate to the referee at the end of each half. So essentially, when the goal is scored to kick off, the clock will stop. Any injuries to players, once that physio is asked to come on till the player leaves, the clock will stop, and any other dark arts that we see for time wasting again will stop. Thankfully, the last 2 games we've seen, players have just got on with the game and thought, I'm not going to mess about with this. However, but we have been seeing 13 to 15 minutes added time each half, so that may become the norm, and the reason for that is to give fans more football and to clamp down on time wasting. So we should see more yellow cards for time wasting. I think Saturday the MK Dons keeper got booked for just delaying the restart, so expect referees, and hopefully will speed the game up, make the game faster, make the game flowing. So if the game's flowing faster, it's going to need better management. Referees have been told to manage the game, so where we might see a bit more body contact, might see a bit more contact. If the players are generally getting on with the game and enjoying themselves and getting on with it, referees will let them do it, and we will probably see a few tackles be let go. However, if the players are not complying, that's where the referees will be asked to step up. So we might see a reduction in yellow cards and possibly red cards this season. I know MK Dons game, Sam Dolby got pulled all over the place. Probably free kick, but to be fair to the referee, he consistently didn't give it and let a lot go. So it's subjective, no complaints with the referee on that. The next one is dissent and mobbing, where we've seen in the past players have chased referees around the pitch or challenged a decision. That shouldn't happen now. As soon as the referee makes a decision and a player steps towards challenging in a relatively aggressive way, expect to see a yellow card. There's an incident in the MK Dons halfway through the second half on Saturday where Ryan Barnett was disagreeing with the referee's decision. He took 2 steps forward, the referee blew his whistle, put his hand out, went stop there, and to be fair, Barnett did. And that was good management, prevented dissent, prevented a yellow card, but also maintained control. Also where the referee gives a decision, when we see 2, 3, 4 players running up to the referee, again, expect a yellow card for that. So they're the latest brief updates on the changes in the directives to referees. So clamp down on time wasting, manage the game, and deal with dissent and unnecessary backpaw behaviour firmly and robustly. Okay? If you need to follow me, I'm Mike the Ref 1974 on Twitter. Always open for chat. Hashtag #AsksWrexham. I have a look at that, and also I will then put the link for these wonderful concrete donkeys, Dougal and George. Sending regards. I believe these are former Chester players who've come to Wales because it's a better place to be. I'm Mike the Ref, and this is Dragonheart.
Yeah, so good old Mike the Ref clearing a bit more up for us. But I don't mean in his donkey sanctuary, I mean clearing up. Oh, you know what I'm saying.
I have to clear up a lot as well, Mike.
Yeah. Oh, well, fair play. Well, the muck never touched my delicate hands, I'm telling you. I've never seen a hard day's work in my life, I tell you that for nothing, except for watching Wrexham under which manager shall I say? Second season Gary Mills I'm going for.
I think more of Dean Saunders maybe as well.
Some of it was very drab, wasn't it? And I was looking back at the first time we played AFC Wimbledon. There's a coincidence. And how he absolutely tore his team, individuals in his team, to shreds, naming them after the match. And I thought, I don't think I really missed those days. It is Wimbledon on Saturday. That first game there was pretty insane. Christian Smith gave away a penalty, which Dean Saunders said was ridiculous. The challenge, not the decision. Maxwell saved it. Mangan scored. We are winning in the 90th minute. Frank Sinclair scores an own goal. Mangan then scores in added time to put us 2-1 up. And then Curtis Obeng passes back to the keeper, which ends up being a corner. So Saunders has slaughtered him. And then from the corner, as it was coming in, Frank Sinclair's being jostled and punches the man he's marking. He gets sent off for the third time in the season, the second time in the month, because that was straight after he broke Tom Kearney's leg, if you remember. And we let in the penalty and somehow managed to draw 2-2. But Wimbledon, isn't it wonderful to see him back in the Football League?
Oh, definitely so. Yeah, we had MK Dons last Saturday, and we've got Wimbledon this Saturday. Within a week, we couldn't have written the script, and Wimbledon
from one extreme to another, haven't we?
Yes, very, very true. And it's good to see them coming back to their home, Wimbledon. They've got their new stadium now, which is originally just, as you say, just across the field from where they used to be. So they're back in where they want to be. Wrexham sold out their away following yet again. I don't know how many away fans they've allowed us to have. I don't know, but I know that's sold out. Funny enough, my nephew was able to get a ticket in the Wrexham end. He normally goes in the home end because he can never get a ticket in the away end, but he did. So he's looking forward to the trip down to Wimbledon, and it'll be a good game. Proper club, proper fans. I'm sure the fans and the players will be looking forward to it. A long trip.
Hopefully worth it.
Whether the players are going to fly there after all the.
Well, let's find out more about Wimbledon then, because Michael Taliadoros, you'll hear his voice on Saturday as the stadium announcer, who does commentating as well for them, a top bloke from a top club, has been chatting about what we can expect.
I'm Gareth Owen, and this is Dragonheart.
Well, Michael, we go back quite a while. It's wonderful to see you. Wonderful to have the excuse to chat to you, because we're back in the same division as my favourite other club. I think it's the only way I can put it, really. And I think I speak for a lot of people around the country saying that, AFC Wimbledon. It'll be brilliant to come and see you. And I suppose the first thing I should say, for anyone who's been to see an away game against you, is wonderfully a different ground.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, first of all, Mark, thanks very much indeed for inviting me on. It's a great pleasure to see you as well. And obviously, won't have seen you since our 2 seasons worth of meetings in the Conference National, wherever it was called, Blue Square Premier, I think it was. And of course, the first time you've visited Plough Lane as well, because I think you played us. Obviously, Kings Meadow was the last 2, and then Selhurst Park on that Sunday, that FA Cup tie back in 1998. So yeah, it's the first time, even though it's a couple of 100 yards up the road from where you would have visited had you had the chance. But no, a warm welcome awaits you all, and again, just going to have the colour, and probably even pageantry, I suppose, to a certain extent, with the sort of celebrity connections. All the Wrexham fans will be coming down. You're going to pack your particular allocation out, and obviously to see you yourself as well. Always been very hospitable to us when we were up at the Kairos, and then when you come down to us, we try to make you welcome, because we just kind of identify with sort of similar sort of mindsets in what we're looking for our clubs. We don't expect that much, but as long as we get effort on the field. Then that's all you can really ask for at any time. But looking forward to the game. It's going to be good. And then, of course, 13th of January when we come and see you guys.
Well, I mean, it really is. The difference in our status from when we played you last, obviously, is immense. But I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that I think the owners have come in attracted by exactly that. And we haven't, I don't think, changed in our nature. I think there's still, like you said, that desire just to see the team do their best and appreciate it. I mean, when they're getting 5 goals at home last Saturday, people still stay behind to clap them off the pitch. and that was brilliant. But I've got to say that I've always felt since my first trip to visit you guys, and of course you have a very unique history, really, in terms of what was done to your club and then how you responded. But I've never felt such a tangible sense of a community club as I did at Kingsmeadow, even though it wasn't really your home as such. It just felt different somehow. It felt very united, and I think to me, AFC Wimbledon's always been the example I'd want to follow as a community club. Would you say that that's even stronger now you're back at your spiritual home and back in the league?
Yeah, very much so, Mark. And also, it's very, really appreciate your kind words. And yeah, and of course, when you think back to that fateful day, 2002, when the FA Commission arrived at their absolutely ludicrous decision, you mentioned about the fans and the community, and I think obviously that's how it had to be at the start. It was intrinsic to our kind of rebirth, if you like. And it's very much ingrained in our sort of DNA, the fact that obviously it was the fans who decided they'd kind of had enough. They weren't going to go 60 miles up the M1 to watch a team in different colours, different badge, with different stadium, etc., etc. And I think we've done as well as could possibly be expected in terms of maintaining the spirit of Wimbledon alive. And I think especially now, I mean, if at the time, if you'd said to us that, we would have been back in the league in under 10 years and back at Plough Lane in under 20, I'd have probably arranged to have you sectioned or something like that. But
again,
but the way, well, no,
I couldn't forgive you for last time.
Oh well, yeah, exactly. We won't talk about that. But yeah, it's all become part and parcel, and of course the fans are still very much an intrinsic part of the club. We're obviously all the owners of the club via the Dons Trust. I think it's what we say it's a fan-owned club or a fans club, whatever phraseology you want to use. But of course, that was the driving force in the first instance that raised the various money. The fans have been very generous with their funding whenever it's been necessary, just to bridge little gaps. And of course, having thrown pretty much everything, including a number of kitchen sinks, at getting back to Plough Lane, it's even more kind of intrinsic now. The bond between club and fans, it'll always be there. It'll always be totally irrevocable. And obviously we'll see how we go in the future, but certainly I think for the opening 21 years since that fateful decision, I think again, we remain quite modest as well. We don't want to blow our own trumpet, but certainly we can give ourselves a pretty hearty pat to the back, I think, bearing in mind what's happened in the time.
And sort of slightly unexpected possible question for you linking into that. I mean, obviously, as you know, the Wrexham Supporters Trust did an astonishing job, saved Wrexham, and ran the club very well. Near the end, elements of support did start to get impatient, for the Trust's attitude was that they weren't going to put the club in jeopardy, which I totally agree with. But better to have some quiet seasons than no seasons is my attitude. But I think as time went on, some elements of the support did start to get tired of that, wanted more of a cash injection, and the takeover probably from that perspective happened at the perfect time. Have you experienced anything like that, or is the fact that you have got back into the Football League so quickly, you have got your home ground back so quickly, has that meant that actually that, and maybe the circumstances are different in the takeover, means that no, you've just now got this completely new identity which nobody has any qualms about?
Yeah, it's an interesting one actually, Mark, because as time has gone on and as we progressed through the divisions, and eventually we had 6 seasons in League One, it was pretty obvious that at that time we'd reached our kind of glass ceiling, and we had pretty much at least maybe the final 4 of those 6 seasons always a struggle and narrowly avoiding relegation, and clearly seeing that we couldn't maybe progress under the current model, maybe under the current infrastructure in terms of our league status and what division we were in. And I think more and more it's become a bit more of a bone of contention, a bit more of a hot potato, I think, amongst certain sections of the support. That there are some obviously who go back to the 2002 mentality of, and quite rightly so, and I'm probably more inclined towards that never wanting the club to be jeopardised of being taken away again and carted up the motorway in a removal van. But others, I think, that they have other views, and again, it's perfectly valid because, of course, you need a bit of money in this day and age. It's what football revolves around, particularly now when you see the multi-billion-pound activities of other clubs and the stadia and. There are certain sponsors that are there and benefactors. But obviously there are those who want the investment to the point where we still maintain the minimum 51% of the club control. I think there are a few others who actually believe in selling beyond that and maybe risking again a situation like we faced in 2002. So it's certainly something that's been mentioned. It's not. I don't think it's fair to say that everyone's sitting around sort of all clapping in unison and singing "Kumbaya" together and to coin a phrase and be absolutely satisfied. But I think deep down it's not necessarily wanting to go back to the old ways or fit in with the modern financial ethos that surrounds a lot of the football. I think it's just from a genuine desire to progress, because a lot of the fans obviously who go down to Wimbledon, they were there, but back in the 70s and the 80s, the cup runs that put us on the map, and then getting into the Football League originally 1977, and winning the FA Cup obviously 1988, and then again the gradual decline towards the end of that particular century, and maybe wanted to try to if we're going to try and emulate the club from those days under Dave Bassett, Bobby Gould, etc., then that financial on a disparity, or maybe getting close to maybe seceding total control, I suppose, if that's the right word, is something that people sort of again it gets a bit kind of fraught and a bit fractious at times, particularly over the last couple of seasons when we've not done particularly well, and that's brought the maybe need in some people's minds for external financing to even more sharply into focus. So yeah, it's at the moment the club will remain as it is, but then we'll have to see where we go sort of further down the line, and maybe it might be something that might be evident maybe 10 years, 20 years down the line as the current generation of fans maybe sort of die away and the new fans sort of come in, which is of course a natural kind of progression as time goes by. So certainly be interesting to see how it goes, but at the moment I think it's going to remain as it is, and making sure there are no shall we say interlopers looking to try and take everything away and form AFC Wimbledon some 60 miles in another direction.
So, yeah, first club in the English Channel. But just one final thing, Mark, regarding I remember when you were having your problems as well with Wrexham, and I remember I read out we had a message for you over the PA at Kings Meadow just to the Wrexham supporters. We didn't sort of divide you guys up. We said it to all of you that we wished you all very well at the time, and obviously they saved the club, and obviously now you've taken off in that completely new direction with the two American gentlemen who've come in, and again just looking at obviously you probably have your own opinions about maybe the kind of the media coverage, and it's been a bit I don't remember the last time the National League winners had their open top bus parade sort of on telly or on the internet or anything like that, but again, if that's what it took to get you guys out of the doldrums and re-establish yourselves as a league club since that sort of dark day in 2008, then that's what you got to do, and money's the name of the game now. There's no escaping that, Mark, is there? Absolutely. I mean, I suppose I think eventually we would have gone back up, because we've been getting consistently amongst the biggest crowds in the division. We do before the takeover bring in more revenue than most teams in the division, but as you say, money counts. And, for example, the T-shirt I'm wearing now, my Andy Morale 98 points T-shirt.
Marvellous.
Still stands, despite what happened last season, as the most points any team in the top 5 divisions has ever got without going up, because we coincided with Fleetwood having money.
Yes,
Crawley
absolutely.
won the league in a season when we were we fell off a bit, but, that was a similar thing. We've seen Forest Green Rovers, for example. They're not the same amounts as us. But the problem was when you try to break even and play in an even playing field and hope that your natural support will push you through, you're always in danger of something like that happening. So, but having said that, I must be frank and say that I was always a diehard of the most important thing is the club's safe in the trust's hands. I really wasn't interested in a takeover and would have voted against it until we understood the actual nature of this, because they are sincere, and their desire to help the community of Wrexham, not just the club, is a big part of what they want to do. So we are fortunate enough to have gone into, and I don't have any qualms in saying this, the ideal sort of ownership in that sense, and that they really are helping the town.
Very much so.
And they've also, unlike a lot of those clubs I mentioned before, which I always rejected and feared for, that idea of a lot of money being pumped into a small club and then they go up and they go pop. Russian and Diamonds, Neath, for example. But we are, a lot of people are saying, well, we'll have a problem when we go up because we're financial fair play. But I always say this to people, it seems pretty unique. They've genuinely monetized their celebrity, like you say, all that attention. So our turnover is ludicrous. So 55% of our turnover leaves us a lot of wriggle room to bring in more players if we want to. So they've not just walked in, stuck money in, and it can't sustain itself. They're really trying to set her up, and so we're very lucky.
Yeah, it sounds like it's in a very controlled way as well. You're not in danger of sort of breaching any regulations, and again, they've done it. They've not just absolutely just blindly thrown it. They've obviously worked with the local community. They worked with the infrastructure, the existing infrastructure of the club. But again, in Wrexham, again, a big club, and if you reach like a playoff final, if you reach like the one of the cup finals, the EFL Trophy, for example, you could be guaranteed 20,000-30,000 people who'd come down from North Wales to Wembley. I mean, you've always had that kind of historic fan base. I think back to the Anderlecht quarter final and the quarter final with Arsenal in 1978, and then when you beat them in '92, and it was a packed out rate, including the Coppice Terrace as well, which is always ram-packed as it was back in those days. Hopefully, you guys are rebuilding that now.
Yes.
And you'll always have that real sort of intrinsic kind of support base that will, call it coming out of the woodwork if you want, for want of a better phrase. But if the occasion demands it, and then of course, as further progress up the divisions would then go hand in hand with, if you then go up to League One and further, then you'll always have the latent kind of support, which will obviously underpin everything. So that's a good plus point, obviously, that Wrexham have in their favour.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you, bringing it forwards to now. I suppose I don't want to forget him, so I've got to say now, Ollie Palmer.
Yes.
And I've got to say, he didn't start on Saturday. He came on and changed the game. He started on Tuesday and was excellent. He's really playing like a man who wants to play against AFC Wimbledon on Saturday, I'm telling you.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it was one that sort of we didn't really want him to go. I don't think he personally wanted to go as such, but obviously it was something that happened behind the scenes where it was deemed that he had to go for whatever reason. Obviously, internal stuff, we will never know the full ins and outs of that one. But I think it was a vital and a pivotal moment in the relegation season, because if you compare the stats of points per game we gained when he was in the side compared with when he was out of the team, it was about a point or so differential on average. And when you consider the fine margins, the teams we lost to around us, or didn't beat rather, and just something ricocheting in off his a backside or a deflection or a far post header or whatever, I mean, it would have made the difference, and certainly the general consensus is it would have kept us up. He seemed to a certain extent, whilst obviously relishing the chance to join Wrexham and obviously make himself and his family financially secure, so you can certainly understand from that perspective. And again, we're looking forward to seeing him on Saturday, and I'd like to think that the overall the reception he'll get, he certainly won't. I don't think he'll be treated as some kind of pantomime villain. He'll be kind of welcomed back, and maybe that little rueful element of sort of 18 months ago or so, when what might have been had we kept him on, because the player we brought in to sort of replace him as such only scored one goal. Again, I don't know if that was but Sam Cosgrove was banging him in for Plymouth last season, so. Whether it was just he was in the middle of a struggling team and therefore he could do it all on his own, or whether it's himself not being particularly good. I mean, again, opinions divided upon it, but his history's done and dusted now. So again, all we can do is kind of move forward. But in terms of Ollie Palmer, yeah, certainly maybe a case of what might have been had we, maybe have been a bit more kind of determined in looking to, retain his services. I don't think it was something the manager at the time wanted to go through with, but I think it went above his head, and obviously he went, and obviously you guys Palmer alongside Paul Mullin and such like, with about a hatful of goals, and have obviously reaped the benefits. So again, no grudges whatsoever against Ollie Palmer, and he'll be brought a pot of Darjeeling and a plate of digestives on Saturday to welcome him back to what is historically his home, because I think one of his relatives played many years ago for Wimbledon, so he's got that family connection. So I think he'll be warmly welcomed back, certainly.
And I'm sure a pot of tea and some digestives on his
diet. You're guaranteed one, Mark. Don't worry about that. We've got a big supermarket across the road, so we'll make sure that there won't be any shortage of comestibles for you when you join us.
Oh, well, that's exactly, delicate, pixie-like figure that I am. I'm glad to hear that. I suppose the other thing to say is both sides. I was going to say that in some ways we come into this game in a similar way in terms of selection. But before I get to that, I will say one thing, of course, is we both have a McClean to try and fit in. We've brought in James McClean, of course, who didn't make his debut because of a gentleman's agreement with Wigan on Tuesday, but you would assume we'll find a place for him on Saturday. And then for you, I mean, Ryan McClean's quite a story, isn't he, on Tuesday?
Yes, certainly. Last night when he got the winner against Coventry, we were 1-0 down, still with 5 minutes to go, and then equalised, and then went into stoppage time. And yeah, he's come in obviously from Hereford. I think he sort of had to give up a job potentially as an IT recruiter, I think it was. Obviously pursuing the career now, obviously football full time in the Football League, and certainly showed plenty of promise in pre-season. And then he was one of a raft of substitutions we made last night to try and break up a bit of Coventry dominance. I mean, it's a strange old story because they were one penalty kick away from being in the Premier League. We ended up 5 points above being back in the National League, so there could potentially have been 4 divisions between us. But in the end, it was like a Wimbledon Cup tie of old, and we sort of kept our powder dry till the end. But indeed, you mentioned the contrast maybe between the two McCleans. I mean, Ryan with ourselves looks like a very promising prospect, and having scored that excellent goal last night to win the game, obviously we've got high hopes for him. But in terms of James McClean for yourselves, I think that's the kind of real statement sort of signing that you would expect for Wrexham coming into the league to make sure they absolutely consolidate, and the sort of player that you can accommodate within your kind of the financial infrastructure that you have now. Again, without going absolutely hell for leather and doesn't hit some money and throwing it blindly. You've obviously looked around at the players that were available, and of course established international too. And a great signing, and I think he scored for Wigan, I think a couple of seasons ago when he came down to see us. So we know all about his finishing and the left foot that he possessed on that particular afternoon. Wasn't a very happy day. Wigan dominated the game, but of course he's got a very impressive CV as well. So if he's employing all of that at League Two level, then they say the class rises to the top, and at that particular level, he's bound to be a real asset for you. And obviously, I know Mullins obviously injured at the moment. Obviously, you'll have Ollie Palmer. We'll see if he plays obviously on Saturday. But that's the real. It's a statement of intent for Wrexham to say that we've come up, we've had 15 years out of the league, we've come back now with a record points total, and we're looking to push on. We're not looking to just make up the numbers or mid-table or whatever. If the opportunity exists to then push on further and get yourselves back up to the third tier and beyond, then of course it's the kind of signing that you would perhaps expect Wrexham to make, and of course with the firepower to be able to do so. So I expect him to be a good player, particularly at League Two level. And we'll see what he does on Saturday. And if we can stop him scoring again, then we'll be more than happy.
Well, I mean, looking again at Saturday, like I said before, in a way, our approach to these games is quite similar. We had the beating. Well, it wasn't a beating. It looked like a beating on Saturday. The truth is we malfunctioned weirdly at the start of the game. And then for the last hour or so, and certainly the whole of the second half, we were dominant. But they were clinical. It's quite fun having statistics again. You can trust coming into the Football League. They had 6 shots, scored 5 goals. We had more shots than anyone else in League Two last Saturday, but we kept blasting it over or wide from the edge of the box. But the performance wasn't quite so bad. But then Parkinson has switched the team around, 8 changes on Tuesday, and that was a superb performance, which leaves him with lots of tricky decisions about which regulars he brings back in or not, because they were a real unit on Tuesday. Now you had a good Saturday. I think that's a good point at Grimsby, isn't it? But nonetheless, you've then gone on. You've rotated your team, and some of the maybe non-regulars have also shown what they've got. So we both have an interesting situation here of what mix will there be? Do you think that you're going to go back to your first 11 from the Saturday, or might there be some rotation?
I think there might be some rotation to a certain extent, Mark. I mean, obviously we made I think it's 5 or 6 changes last night to the team that played at Grimsby, and of course we ended up with I think making 5 substitutions in the end, all of them with an attacking mindset, and obviously that then eventually brought itself to bear, turned the tie around, and obviously sent us through. So I think and then the players who came on, all of them made a strong case maybe for inclusion. Our goalkeeper as well came back as well into the side, made a number of saves, was the pretty unanimous sort of choice as man of the match. So whether that's enough to then displace the Alex Bass who we've signed on loan from Sunderland, obviously time will tell. But even the players we sort of dropped to the bench from Saturday, most of them came on last night, and I mean there's a strong case for all of them to be included. So I don't think it will be the exact same side, but it may not be the 6 players all fully reinstated because they're still with a couple of little niggling injuries. But I imagine there will be certainly, I'd imagine 2 or 3 maybe that have really stated their case. Omar Bougiel, who we got from Sutton, was the guy who got the equaliser. Real battering ram kind of going forward. So I imagine he's certainly pressed his claims very strongly indeed. So again, yeah, just with a half an eye on what you guys are doing as well, we might tweak our kind of tactics to sort of counteract what you guys might have up your sleeve as well. So yeah, and again, it's always the case that when you have the first round of the Carabao Cup, obviously it's like the EFL trophy. I mean, maybe not to that extent, because obviously you have certain rules and regulations about how many players you can bring in, and they've got a certain percentage had to have featured in the previous Saturday's league game or something like that. I'm not sure the entire wherefores and whatnots of it. I don't think anyone is to tell you the truth, but yeah, I imagine we'll probably rotate back to a certain extent, and yeah, just reward people, I think, for the performances they put in last night, because when you're on the up and you're fueled by that real euphoria that was generated by the results in the end, you're on a bit of a bounce. Confidence will increase accordingly, and then of course you can take that into the next game, and at the very least I think 2 or 3 of them will, I think, at least be worth a try to try and take you guys on.
Yeah, we certainly know Omar Bougiel, because the season before Sutton went up, he scored a hat-trick against us. Although during the course of that match, he also, I think he was already booked, if I remember correctly, and he pulled what I thought was the textbook straight red tackle that they would be showing you, the IFAB would be showing as an illustration to referee. Proper studs up, halfway up the leg, bang, real force going through, and the referee just thought, oh, I don't like making decisions, and walked away. He's certainly done well against us. We know about him. And Al Hamidi has been on loan in the National League and has always played well. Usually as a wide striker. I think he was through the middle yesterday, wasn't he? But he's, as a wide striker, he's done well against us. So we've got
when he initially came to us, I think we tried to deploy him on the wing, and we saw the ball played forward to him, and he used to run in on the angle from either side towards the area. But then obviously we then deployed him more as a central striker. He went on that real purple patch of scoring for us, and certainly had a very interesting game at Grimsby on Saturday. He came on, I think, in around the 55th minute. Within a couple of minutes, he'd won the penalty. He took the penalty, but had it saved. And then a couple of minutes later, he got booked for a little bit of a late challenge. So I don't know whether because of the pure adrenaline, because obviously he would have been really raring to go after recovering from an injury towards the latter stages of last season. So whether it might have been the case that the penalty might have been best left to somebody else, because we all know that sometimes adrenaline can supersede your kind of concentration. Obviously, the keeper's still got to save it. Obviously, if he dives the other way, then it's brilliant penalty. Save the keeper, sent the keeper the wrong way. So it's never a truly win-win situation either way. But yeah, certainly someone we've got high hopes in. And Bougiel, as you say, certainly a robust physical presence up front. Hopefully, won't be transgress the law for us on too many occasions, similar to the situation that you outlined. But certainly ones you imagine will give opposing defenders the runaround, or at least let them know they've been in the game. You would imagine more often than not.
Yeah, we'll need to defend against them as we did on Tuesday rather than on Saturday. As for Al Hamidi having that crazy little spell in the game, at least he didn't do a full Frank Sinclair, because I'm sure you remember better than I do. The first game at yours, he scores an own goal in the last minute.
Yes, that's right, sent off. I think it was the second. I think it was the second season of that 2-2 draw. I think Andy Mangan scored a couple of goals for you guys. I think the previous season, wasn't it, Matthias Pogba, I think, got the only goal.
That's right,
another midweek game as well. But yeah, that was a particularly interesting evening. And of course, that one went right to the wire as well. The very late equaliser. And I think for the second time that season, albeit after a draw rather than us winning at the racecourse, Dean Saunders, shall we say, didn't cut a particularly happy or, dare I say, magnanimous figure after the final whistle. But it made up for all the times he scored against us for Derby and Aston Villa and Liverpool. So I think that kind of levelled itself out over the period of time, maybe.
Yeah, I think magnanimity was never really his big thing after defeat, to be honest, or victory. But yeah, I was actually looking back at it the other day and just seeing how in the press conference he just called out his team. But yeah, it was a proper drama. Frank Sinclair getting sent off as well. Danny Kedwell got under his skin. Oh dear me, it was quite nuts.
It made up for being at the football that evening and having to miss out on EastEnders. I think we had a similar kind of level of melodrama and all that kind of thing. But yeah, certainly a very eventful game anyway. But honours even. But again, showing maybe the Wimbledon spirit, and despite Mangan, obviously a very proven striker. Very nearly sent us down a couple of years later when he was with Fleetwood, and then we survived with 18 minutes to go with a winning goal. So we know all about him. And I think I remember about the game at the racecourse, Wrexham absolutely dominating the first half. Obviously, Mangan scored, but you had the likes of the man on your T-shirt, Morel, gave our left back a particularly torrid time. the likes of Keats and Jay Harris, Nathan Andrews at the back was certainly a dominant force in the first half. I think Maxwell had to make a couple of sort of saves as well as the game went on, and then the second half. And I felt a little bit kind of blushful at the end, thinking that how you guys had dominated certainly the first half and to a certain extent the second, but it was just one of those things. And also regarding the end of that particular season, we always think about various permutations of what might have been, and if it had been you guys in the playoff final instead of Luton, again, could have been a completely sort of a different outcome. But certainly days we can look back on, and now we meet again happier times in the equality of ourselves in League Two. So we can look back with the kind of the sepia tinted prints and the rose tinted spectacles, if you like. But thankfully, both clubs, particularly yourselves, coming up last season with the eventual kind of happy ending of being back in the league. So it's a happy scenario all round. So that's good to see.
Absolutely right. That's the perfect point to end on, isn't it? I'm really looking forward to it on Saturday. It's
yes,
one
absolutely.
of those games where I really want us to win, obviously, but it'll be a pleasure no matter what, because we know that we are going to be playing at a club with a very similar mindset to an awful lot of the important people at our club as well. So I look forward to it massively, Michael. I really do.
Yes, absolutely. Look forward to giving you the usual warm welcome there, Mark. And I managed to grab a selfie last night with Steve Griffiths of Coventry, and hopefully the same with a similarly esteemed broadcaster such as yourself when you come to see us on Saturday.
that won't be one to show the children of me on it, I tell you. I've got a great Steve Griffiths story that I'll tell you on Saturday.
Oh, right, okay. Is it broadcastable, or will it need to be?
It is broadcastable. In fact, I'm started wondering whether I should quickly say now. Give me 1 second. Can I see the evidence? It's here.
Yeah, by all means.
I'm going to just search around. No, I don't think I can see it. It's in this room somewhere.
Okay.
Well, I'd better say about it now, hadn't I?
You can't leave the viewers and listeners, and above all myself, dangling there, Mark. You've got to go through this one.
You're absolutely right. I'm not, because it's definitely here. Oh, hang on. Oh, no, it's not. Is it there? No. Okay. I'll tell you the story, which is that when I was a little kid, I cashed in my small town boy right to have my local team and a top division team. The kids now that I teach constantly ask me, who do I support? And when I say Wrexham, even though there's so many Wrexham fans, I say, yeah, but who's your Premier League team? And I'm like, it's just Wrexham. Give me 3 years, it'll be Wrexham. But yes, so I used to like Liverpool. This is, of course, the late 70s, are the best team in the world then, frankly.
Oh, yeah,
and
Joey
my mum
Jones.
and dad took me up to Anfield midweek in the morning because they'd been told that the Liverpool players come back on the bus from training and then they sign autographs. So I went to the club shop and I bought a team poster, and I was thrilled because all these Liverpool legends, Dalglish, Souness, everybody, they're all signing my poster for me. It's what I've got here. Where the heck has it gone? Oh, I think it might be on the. It's starting to bug me this now. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
So they all signed them, and then Griffiths signed them.
Yeah, the reserve goalkeeper at the time, wasn't he? Yeah.
And then he spoke, because he was the backup to Clemens then, and he spoke to my mum. I didn't hear what he said, and he took it on the coach. And I was like, "Oh, what's going on here?" And when he came out, it had the Israeli player they had, Avi Cohen, his signature on it as well.
Yeah.
And I thought nothing of it. He said, "Oh, he's on the coach. I've gone and got him to sign in for you." And I thought, we're a lovely man. Turns out he was an even more lovely man than he seemed, because what he'd actually done, and I don't know why my mum told me this, really, but she's obviously so impressed by him. She told me Cohen was away playing for Israel.
Yeah.
And so what Griffiths had said to her is, he's the only one missing for your son, so I'll go on and I'll fake his signature for you. So fair play to that. Nice gesture.
Oh, well, okay.
I'm probably the only person in the world who has a Liverpool poster with Avi Cohen's signature signed by Steve Griffiths on. So quite proud of that.
Well, absolutely. And of course, what better memento of him scoring at both ends when Liverpool clinched the title in 1980 against Aston Villa, that famous game at the end of that particular season. And of course, I remember back to the beginning of the season watching Liverpool play Arsenal in the Charity Shield. And obviously in those days, I think you were allowed 4 or 5 substitutes on the bench. And they cut to obviously Bob Paisley there, and they had a much longer looking, I think Joe Fagan, I think it was sitting behind him. In the background, this guy with a kind of a bowl haircut, this big burly fellow. And obviously now you think of Griffiths in later years as having shorter hair. But yeah, I think back in the late 70s, I think we were all at it. I've got several school photos that I'm not particularly proud of. So it was the old Pyrex dish, I think, effect. But yeah, certainly to meet him last night, yeah, lovely guy, and great to talk to him. We were mentioning about previous Wimbledon and Coventry clashes. I managed to reel off the entire Coventry 1987 Cup final starting lineup for him, which I think he was impressed with. I don't know how many people he gets coming up to and saying Grizzovich, Phillips, Downs, McGrath, Kilcline, Peake, Bennett, Gin, Reaches, Hougen and Pickering. But he certainly appreciated it. And it's just nice to talk to him. And in the end, bearing on how much Coventry had dominated the game, actually, I didn't want to speak to him afterwards. I felt a little bit kind of, a bit kind of embarrassed and everything. But yeah, nice to talk to him. A genuinely lovely guy, and of course loves his cricket as well. And real all-round local sportsman up there towards North Wales, or Shropshire. I think he was represented in the minor counties. So yeah, lovely guy.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you're too nice, you are. Stop feeling bad when you win a game. A lot of the ball in. That's their problem for not taking the chances.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. We'll change it on Saturday, Mark. I'll turn up in a blood-stained ice hockey mask with a machete down my sock and see if that maybe alters the mindset a little bit.
Hey, there's a few pubs in Wrexham where that's obligatory.
I hope the Turf Hotel though is still accommodating next to the ground and.
Well, the Turf Hotel has it's gone insane there now because Wayne, the landlord, was a star of the first season of Welcome to Wrexham. He's a star now. He went to America and he was getting mobbed by people. And they have, I remember he said in a local paper, we're getting about 30 North American fans a day going into the Turf. And when I read that about a year and a half ago, I thought, oh, that sounds like a bit of an exaggeration. I suspect it's an underestimate. Astonishing the amount of people.
One would imagine that particular patronage would go through the roof. And just finally, Mark, myself and some of my colleagues were discussing previous visits to Wrexham, and I don't know if it's a dubious name or not, the Wrexham Lager Club.
Oh yeah.
Just up the road, and my colleagues. I didn't go in myself, but they were pleased to report it well and truly lived up to its name. But having been told to stay away from the Wetherspoons in town, maybe for one's personal safety. But yeah. So, but it'd be good to visit the racecourse again, and obviously the short walk from the station, and again pop into the Turf if there's room, obviously for any opposing fans. Obviously not wearing colours, and we'll see how we go. But certainly, first things first. Of course, Saturday. Look forward to seeing you guys down there, and it'll certainly be a real sense of occasion as well. So we're looking forward to it very much.
Oh, me too. Pleasure to speak to you, Michael. Thank you so much for doing this.
And you as well, Mark. Good look forward to seeing you Saturday. Take care, and thanks for having me on again. Many thanks to you.
Oh, brilliant.
I'm Mia Roberts, and this is DRAGONHEART.
Top man, Michael. Excellent stuff. Looking forward to seeing him on Saturday. Well, Neil, that's about it, really. It's been an interesting start to the season, hasn't it? But now we can see what we like on the road.
Yeah, look forward to Saturday. I'm sure it could be a good game on Saturday, and I would hope for a win. So, but who knows? It's early in the season. The players are still finding their legs again, but we've got the quality there.
Yeah, absolutely right.
And I can see us maybe coming back with at least a point.
Well, let's hope we can get a positive result. But it's been an interesting start to the season. It's good to be back, isn't it? So, I'm Mark Griffiths. That guy's Neil Williams, and this is DRAGONHEART.
I'm Tommy Couse, and this is DRAGONHEART. There you go.